Okay, this is our GLX TDI. It's not really a GLX, it just has some GLX parts on it. It's a Mark III TDI Golf. It's a Mark III TDI Jetta. And we did a previous video on it, and that video we come to the conclusion that the timing belt had jumped a tooth. In the comments of that video, Thomas from XOVCDS, that's this guy right here. This guy's been watching my videos and commenting on them, and I really appreciate him. But Thomas from XOVCDS commented that he's seen the crank pulley rotate on the crankshaft, causing a similar issue on, and he actually has a video on it. I'll probably link to that video. His was on an ALH, and the reason I'm redoing this is because I've actually had that happen to me one time, where a customer brought me a vehicle and I knew the timing belt had slipped and the piston smacked the valves, and as I took it apart I came to the end conclusion that this had turned on the crankshaft. That would probably be because this bolt comes loose, and I would assume it's because somebody worked on it and left this bolt loose. So we are taking this apart in order to confirm this. I don't see any signs that this looks like it's come loose. It doesn't matter though, it's too risky to chance, and we are going to take it apart, retime the engine, and put it back together and visually inspect behind there to make sure it hasn't come loose. This bolt is a stretch bolt and it's one-time use only, and the torque spec is really, really high. But we'll show you that process and make sure that this thing has a reliable timing belt system, because it's just too much liability to risk it. Okay, we have taken this apart further and we still see no evidence that the pulley has actually turned on the crankshaft. That doesn't matter though. It's so important to make sure these things are secure, because the pistons will smack the valves if it continues moving. So we are going to pull that apart, replace that bolt, probably replace the seal behind it, just to be sure. It's just too critical to ignore.
Okay.
Okay, we have our crank yank hooked up in here, but I want to tell some folks that the crank yank is designed to have a piece of pipe thread screwed into it, like this, and that just is not safe. Pipe threads are tapered. They're designed to seal, and so the taper, as you screw it in, expands outwards and seals up the pipe. But what that means is if you're using it in a high load situation like that thinness of the pipe, because it's tapered down, can break. And Cortland might need to zoom in here, but this side broke, and this thing hit me clean in the head when it broke. So can you say they see that pretty clear? Yeah. There's the jagged edge from where it broke. And then so I thought it was just a fluke. You know, they designed this tool, that's the way it's supposed to be used. So I flipped it around and used the other side, and you can see this side is just destroyed because it bent. Luckily it didn't hit me in the head, and I wasn't wounded when this happened or anything like that, so it's not that big of a deal, but it definitely wasn't fun to be smacked in the head with a pipe. But that side, ooh, it's kind of jagged. That side is damaged also. So I want to warn you to be very, very careful. It might be fine for someone who just uses the crank yank once in a while, but you know, we're a TDI specialty shop, so we use a crank yank all the time, and so after 30 uses or something, this thing broke, and it's fairly dangerous. So what we do instead of using the pipe is we just stick something inside there, and so that adds no risk of the threads breaking, and so that's how we use the crank yank now. So the torque spec on this is very, very high, and so you have to use a crank yank to bust it loose. Not even a gun will, generally not even a gun will break it loose. So I'm trying to get a good bite on this here. Is my head in the way?
No, not at all.
Be really, really gentle when you're doing this, because you don't want the pistons to smack into the valves. Okay, now back out where you can see me.
All right.
I might need to grab a cheater bar for this. Let's see if I can break this thing loose. That thing was very, very loose. Okay, so it's a good thing we're doing this. Okay, so hopefully you could tell that this thing was fairly loose, and it's a very good thing that we're doing this. Just zoom in right here. As you can see here, number one, there's all this powder here, and that means that movement's been happening, and it slowly wears away the metal.
Okay.
And this right here is supposed to be a flat, and it's obviously been wearing away as this thing moves. So I think we need to replace this pulley. Let's take a look at the crankshaft, see how it looks. Okay, there's what the flat is supposed to look like. I don't see any significant damage there to the crankshaft. We're going to get a new pulley, and it's a very good thing we did this. Thank you so much, Thomas. And I should have known better, because I have had an ALH that did this. Luckily we had a core engine with this pulley on it, and this is in good shape here. You can see that's nice and flat there, whereas on this one it's at a significant angle right there. It's worn away. And we tried to use the ALH at first. Part number was very similar. Part number is exactly the same except for it ends in an E. And on this AHU engine, the part number ends in a D. So we should be able to get this back together and get the customer back on the road good to go. Have a new seal. There's the part number. Looks right. And we have a new bolt. There's a part number. I have a couple screwdrivers that are specially modified for pulling seals out. If you can see the notches, I've ground into those there. Nice and easy. Okay, I have this sleeve that works on some of them to help install the seal. Gets it over and past the part of the crankshaft that would stop it. At this point you could probably just tap it in with a hammer, but I have this special tool here. It works really well. Okay, the new crank gear. And the new bolt. I did make a direct comparison to the old bolt, and it was an exact match. I have decided that I'm going to put a drop of Loctite on this. Okay, the torque spec on this is 66 foot-pounds plus quarter turn. So there's our 66. And the hard part's the quarter turn. Especially since Cortland's short and he's got the car so low, I can't even get under it. Okay, so that's very nearly a quarter turn. Let me get a little bit more on it. What do viewers think? Is that enough, or do they need to go a little farther? I'd say that's 90. Gonna do more? Till that bolt breaks off.
Break out the protractor.
Or the special tool that I have. But problem with the special tool is you have to, you can't do it in one full sweep, so it doesn't really work out well anyway. Howdy, Lucas. I'll be right with you.
Yep.
If you gonna leave the golf, you can probably just, can you hand him his key and
Yeah.
we'll.
Is that reverse threaded?
No. It's what's called a stretch bolt. You tighten it to a specific torque and then you stretch it a quarter turn.
Yep.
You're literally stretching it based on their engineering to just before the point of failure.
Oh, fun.
So go a little bit farther on accident. Yeah,
Right.
nice. And of course you have to replace the bolt every time you use it.
Right. Okay. Is it okay to just leave the whole set?
I really think that's as much as we need to show on this. We're not doing a timing belt how-to, but we did want to show you that there was a problem here. Obviously, I think we misdiagnosed this car when it was here before. We thought the timing belt had jumped a tooth, whereas this pulley had turned a tooth. Luckily, the customer did bring it back before it slipped any farther and the piston smacked the valves. Luckily, ThomasXOVCDS reminded me that it needed, that this was a problem, a potential problem, and luckily we got the customer to bring it back before it was a problem. We're going to end this video here. If you learned anything from this video, click like and subscribe. If you want to financially contribute to the continued production of these videos, visit our website at www.kansascitytdi.com.